Ever had time stop with just one message? I did on a quiet Thursday night, standing in our kitchen when a single text shattered the truth I thought I was living. That was the night everything changed. You ever have a moment where time just stops, where everything you thought was solid, everything you trusted with your whole damn heart, suddenly turns into smoke in your hands? I had that moment on a quiet Thursday evening, standing in our kitchen with my wife's phone lighting up beside the sink. I didn't mean to look. I swear I didn't. But curiosity turned into dread, and dread turned into the kind of pain that guts a man from the inside out. What I saw wasn't just a message, it was the unraveling of everything I believed about my life, my marriage, and the woman I thought would grow old with me. The thing about betrayal is it doesn't always come crashing in like a thunderstorm, it creeps in like fog, slow and silent, until you're lost in it and don't even remember how you got there. For me, it started on a Thursday night, just after dinner, while my wife was in the shower and our daughter, Ava, was upstairs doing her homework with music playing in the background loud enough to rattle the floorboards. I was cleaning up the kitchen like I usually do. She cooked, I cleaned. That was the unspoken rule between us. It was a comfortable rhythm we'd settled into over the years, the kind that made people say we looked like the perfect couple. And maybe we did. House in the suburbs, a bright, sweet teenage daughter, matching coffee mugs we bought on some anniversary trip to Asheville. But perfect's a funny word. It can hide a lot of cracks underneath. Her phone buzzed once. Then again. It was sitting right there next to the faucet, screen up. I wasn't trying to snoop, I really wasn't. But when a message preview pops up that just says last night was amazing. Miss you already, well, that grabs a man by the throat and doesn't let go. At first, I stood there frozen. My mind raced to make sense of it. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe, I don't know, maybe anything other than what my gut already knew it was. I picked up the phone, hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. I opened the message thread. There were more. So many more. Messages that didn't belong in the life I thought we had. Flirty jokes, late-night plans, I wish I was waking up next to you kind of stuff. The kind of words we hadn't said to each other in years, not since before Ava hit middle school and we started moving through life like coworkers instead of lovers. But that didn't give her the right. That didn't mean she could just find it somewhere else. I put the phone down. Gently. Too gently, maybe. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to make a scene, not with Ava upstairs. My first instinct wasn't even anger. It was shame. Like somehow I was the one who'd done something wrong by reading the truth. I could hear the water still running in the bathroom. The shower she always took too long in. The one where she said she was unwinding from her day, but maybe she was just hiding. I sat at the kitchen table, elbows on my knees, hands clasped tight. My heart was pounding, but my thoughts were quiet, almost too quiet. What do you do when you find out the person who promised to love you forever might be loving someone else right now? I thought about barging into the bathroom, demanding answers, confronting her face to face while steam still clung to the mirror and she looked at me with wet hair and wide eyes. But then I thought about Ava, about her smile, about how she still believed in happy endings and forever promises. And I just couldn't do it. Instead, I grabbed a beer from the fridge, first one I'd had in months, and walked out onto the back porch like it was any other night. I stared up at the stars and tried to breathe through the wreckage I could already feel blooming in my chest. That was the moment I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit for a long time. Our marriage had been limping for years and I was the only one still trying to drag it forward. But it still didn't prepare me for what came next. Because once you open the door to doubt, you start to see all the things you were blind to before. The late-night texts. The secretive smiles. The way she used to light up when she saw me and how that light had been dimmed for a long, long time. And the question I kept asking myself wasn't, is she cheating? I already knew that answer. The question was, what the hell do I do now? I barely slept that night. I laid there next to her in the dark, staring up at the ceiling, trying to keep my breathing steady so she wouldn't know I was awake, while her soft breathing beside me sounded like the calm before a storm I hadn't yet decided to call down. She shifted in her sleep once, her arm brushing mine, and I flinched like I'd been burned. The worst part? I wanted to believe that maybe it was nothing, that there was some reasonable explanation for everything I'd seen, but you don't send "I miss your hands on me" to a coworker unless you're both way out of line and deep into something else. Morning came like a punch to the gut. She got up early like she always did on Fridays, got dressed, did her hair, even hummed a little as she moved through the kitchen. Ava came down a few minutes later, still rubbing sleep from her eyes, her hair a wild mess that reminded me of when she was a toddler and couldn't be bothered with combs or clips. I forced a smile and kissed the top of her head, pouring her cereal while my wife scrolled through her phone across the counter, her screen angled just slightly away from me. Funny how your eyes catch every little thing once you know what to look for. She left for work around 7:45, pecked me on the cheek like she always did, except now that kiss felt like a slap wearing perfume. I watched her drive away, and the moment she was gone, I went back inside and sat at the dining table, my coffee untouched, my thoughts unraveling faster than I could pin them down. I had two choices: confront her and risk blowing our whole life to hell, or wait, dig a little, gather what I needed, and figure out what the hell I was even fighting for. I wasn't just a husband in that house, I was a father too. And if this was going to explode, I needed to make damn sure Ava didn't get caught in the blast. So I started paying attention in a way I never had before. I watched her when she came home from work. I noticed how she took her phone with her to the bathroom now, how she kept it face down even during dinner. I watched how she'd smile at her texts but brush off mine with a distracted "sorry, work's been crazy." And I started checking the phone bill, something I hadn't done in years. That's where I found it. Same number, over and over. Midday calls. Late night ones that went on for 20 minutes, even longer sometimes. Once 2 hours. The number wasn't saved in her phone, but it was there, plain as day, mocking me like it knew I wasn't ready to act. I wrote it down. Every part of me wanted to call it, to hear his voice, to ask him what gave him the right to touch the life I'd built with my own two hands. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to understand the full story. Because this wasn't just about cheating, it was about why. Why her heart had drifted so far from mine that she didn't even feel the need to pretend anymore. Why she could sleep beside me every night and still wake up craving someone else. That weekend, she said she had to go into the office for some quarterly prep, only her office was closed on Sundays, and she knew I knew that. I offered to drive her, just to see her reaction. She hesitated, then said no thanks. She'd stop by the grocery store on the way home. She even smiled like she thought she was fooling me. When she left, I waited 20 minutes, kissed Ava goodbye, told her I was running errands, and followed. I wasn't proud of myself. Never thought I'd be the kind of man who followed his wife's car like some low-budget detective in a crime drama. But desperation makes you do strange things, things you never imagined you'd stoop to when you were standing at the altar, holding hands and swearing forever. She didn't go to her office. She went to a park. A quiet one on the other side of town with a small lake and shaded benches. He was already there. Tall, well-dressed. He looked like he belonged in an ad for life insurance or luxury SUVs. She walked right into his arms. No hesitation. Like she hadn't left a daughter and a husband at home. Like she hadn't stood beside me just yesterday while we laughed at Ava's goofy science project. They sat close. He touched her hand. She touched his knee. They kissed once. Twice. I didn't watch the rest. I couldn't. I drove home with the kind of stillness that only comes after a heart's been split wide open. I pulled into the driveway and sat in the car for a long time, staring at the garage like it was some distant shelter I wasn't sure I was welcome in anymore. Ava was still inside. She'd ask where I went. She'd tell me she finished her homework. She'd want to show me the stupid TikTok she and her friends had made that afternoon. And I'd smile. I'd listen. I'd pretend for now. Because I still didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew this much: whatever happened next, I wasn't going to let Ava grow up thinking this was what love looked like. It's strange how life can keep rolling on like nothing's wrong even while you're falling apart inside. That next week felt like I was living in a dream. No, not a dream, a performance. Every smile I gave Ava, every dinner I cooked, every mundane conversation I had with my wife, it all felt like I was reciting lines in a play I never auditioned for. I didn't confront her right away. Part of me wanted to every single day. But every time I looked at Ava, I felt this aching pull in my chest. She still laughed like the world was good. She still curled up beside me on the couch when we watched movies and asked questions about the plot like I had all the answers. I didn't want to tear that away from her. Not yet. So I kept gathering what I needed. It's amazing what a person will leave behind when they think you're not looking. Receipts, calendar alerts, little digital breadcrumbs. I saw dinner reservations on days she said she was working late. I found a second email account I didn't even know she had. One she'd used to sign up for newsletters about couples retreats, relationship workshops. All of it sent to that hidden inbox, never mentioned to me. None of it for us. One night while she was asleep, I sat in the dark, holding my phone, staring at the number I'd written down. I'd Googled it earlier: burner app. Disposable. Figures. It didn't matter. I wasn't trying to expose him anymore. I was trying to understand how long this had been going on and how much of our life together was real. There were clues, little signs I'd brushed off before. The sudden interest in new makeup. The workouts she'd never skipped. The nights she'd come home smiling but avoid my eyes when I asked how her day went. I used to think she was just reclaiming a piece of herself, maybe fighting off the weight of routine. Now I knew it was more than that. She wasn't coming back. Not really. Maybe she hadn't been with me at all for the past year. Still, I couldn't just leave it there. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out to someone I trusted completely. My younger brother, Luke. We're not the emotional type, never have been. But if there's one person in the world who's always had my back, it's him. I told him everything, at least the basics. Enough for him to understand the storm I was walking through without dragging him into the mud. He didn't say much at first. Just sat there on the other end of the line, breathing slow and heavy like he was holding back words. Then finally he said, "You don't deserve that, man. And Ava sure as hell doesn't either." He offered me a place to stay. Said I could come crash at his place if I ever needed to get out. Said he'd help me with whatever came next. It was the first time in weeks I felt like I had a lifeline. But I still wasn't ready to make a move. That Friday night we had dinner as a family, spaghetti and garlic bread, the way Ava likes it. She was in a good mood, chattering about some group project at school, and for a moment I just watched her and wondered how many more dinners like this we'd have before everything changed. My wife was quiet, distracted. She smiled when it was expected, nodded along to the stories, but her mind was somewhere else, probably with him. After Ava went to bed, I stayed behind in the living room, nursing a drink I didn't want, staring at the muted television while she folded laundry in the other room. Eventually, she sat down beside me, and I almost couldn't believe it. She leaned her head on my shoulder like nothing had changed. And for 1 second, one breath of a moment, I thought, maybe she regrets it. Maybe she's coming back to me. But then her phone buzzed, and she bolted upright like a deer catching the scent of danger. She checked it, typed something, locked the screen, and gave me this tight smile like I hadn't seen everything I needed to know in that 1 second. I turned my head toward her, my chest pounding like it was trying to punch its way out. I almost asked. I almost said it right then. But her smile faded, and she stood up, stretching like she was tired. "I think I'm gonna head up," she said. I nodded, watched her go, and I hated that a part of me still loved her. Still remembered the woman I married. The one who used to laugh so hard she'd snort when we watched bad comedies. The one who danced barefoot in the kitchen with Ava when she thought no one was watching. Where did that woman go? That night, I wrote everything down. Not for evidence. Not for revenge. Just for myself. I needed to see the whole picture. Every clue, every message, every lie, laid out like a roadmap of the wreckage. And when I was done, I stared at the last line I'd written. She's gone. Whether she's still living here or not, she's already gone. And now it was up to me to decide what came next. Because pretending wasn't going to work anymore. And the time for silence was running out. There's a kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with how much sleep you've gotten. It's the weight of pretending, the ache of knowing too much and saying nothing. By Saturday morning, I felt like I was dragging a 1,000-pound secret around with me, trying to smile for Ava while I slowly died inside. We spent most of that day cleaning the house. My wife claimed her work team was meeting for a brunch/strategy session, whatever the hell that means. I didn't even ask for details. She left dressed up in one of those outfits she never wears around the house, heels, lipstick, her hair done with more effort than I'd seen in months. She kissed Ava on the forehead and tossed me a casual "see you later" like we weren't living in a broken home with wallpaper still pretending to hold it together. Once she was gone, I cleaned. Scrubbed every damn corner of the kitchen, vacuumed the living room twice, folded Ava's laundry while she played upstairs. I wasn't trying to impress anyone, I just needed something, anything, to focus on besides the mental image of my wife holding hands with another man at that damn park. It was late afternoon when I heard Ava coming down the stairs, barefoot, dragging her stuffed blanket behind her like she used to when she was 5, even though she was 13 now and wouldn't admit she still loved that thing. She saw me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing, and frowned. "You okay, Dad?" I blinked. "Yeah, sweetheart. Just tired." She squinted at me like she didn't quite buy it but didn't push either. "Can we order pizza tonight?" I nodded. Of course. That little exchange, those few seconds of normal, snapped something in me. I realized I couldn't keep living this half-life. I couldn't sit in the ruins of my marriage while pretending Ava couldn't smell the smoke. I needed to confront the truth. I needed to look my wife in the eyes and ask the question I already knew the answer to. That night, after Ava went to bed and the house was quiet again, I waited. My wife came home later than she said she would, around 10:30, and walked in with that glow people get when they've been living in someone else's affection. She tried to slide past me with a quick, "Hey, sorry I'm late," but I was already standing in the middle of the living room, hands in my pockets, heart pounding like a war drum. "Can we talk?" I said. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. "Sure." She sat on the couch, crossed her legs, and waited. I didn't even dance around it. "Are you seeing someone else?" There it was, the question that had lived like a shadow in every room of our house. I watched her closely, looking for a crack, a twitch, a flinch, anything. And she didn't give me that. What she gave me instead was worse. A sigh. A long, tired sigh, like she'd been waiting for this moment too. "I didn't want it to get to this," she said, her voice quiet. My stomach twisted. "So that's a yes?" She nodded slowly, not looking at me. "It wasn't supposed to be anything. It started out innocent. Just someone to talk to." I swallowed hard. "Does he know you're married? That you have a daughter?" Her eyes flicked up then. "Yes. He knows everything." I sat down because my knees felt like they might give out. "How long?" She hesitated. "A few months." I shook my head. "Don't lie to me." "I know it's been longer. I've seen the phone records. I know about the burner number. I saw you with him at the park." That got her. Her mouth parted, stunned, silent for a second before she closed her eyes like the truth physically hurt her. "I never meant for you to find out that way," she said, barely above a whisper. "Was that the plan then?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Just keep it going until what, he left you? Or I figured it out? Or Ava stumbled across a message and her whole idea of family shattered in front of her?" She looked down, and for a moment I saw the woman I married, the real one, not the stranger she'd become. And she was crying. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry." I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask her why wasn't I enough? Why did she stop loving me? Why didn't she just talk to me when things started falling apart? But I didn't ask. Because deep down I already knew the answers. We stopped holding each other. We stopped laughing at the same jokes. We stopped being us. And somewhere in that silence she found someone who made her feel seen again. I hated it. I hated him. But more than anything, I hated that we'd let it come to this. I stood up, trying to breathe through the fury boiling in my chest. "You have until tomorrow night to tell Ava. If you don't, I will." Her face paled. "Don't, please, she's not ready." I turned toward the stairs, my voice low and steady. "She deserves to know what's going on in her own home." As I walked away, I heard her sob quietly into the couch cushions, but I didn't go back. Because for once, I wasn't the one holding everything together. There are moments in life that feel like a before and after, lines drawn so deep they cut through everything you thought was solid. Telling Ava the truth was one of those moments. I knew, even before the words left my mouth, that nothing in our little family would ever look the same again. The next morning started too normal. That's what made it so hard. Ava came downstairs in her oversized hoodie, yawning, hair tied up in one of those messy buns she claimed took no effort, even though I knew she'd spent 10 minutes in front of the mirror getting it just right. She poured her cereal, sat at the counter, and started scrolling on her phone like it was just another Sunday morning. My wife didn't come down until later. She looked pale. Worn. Like the weight of finally being found out had pressed 1,000 bricks onto her shoulders overnight. She glanced at me, then at Ava, and I could tell by the way she hovered in the kitchen doorway that she didn't know how to start. So I did. "Ava," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "can you put your phone down for a second?" She looked up, confused. Sure." I sat beside her, not across from her like I usually did. My wife leaned against the counter, arms crossed, chewing the inside of her cheek like she might spit out the truth instead of say it. "There's something we need to talk about," I began, the words dry and brittle in my mouth. "Something important." Ava's face tightened immediately. She's always been perceptive, more than we gave her credit for. "Are you guys getting divorced?" she asked, her voice flat, almost too calm. I blinked. "Why would you say that?" She shrugged, but there was a crack in her expression now. "You two haven't been okay for a long time. You barely talk anymore unless it's about groceries or chores. You both look sad all the time. And you think I don't notice." My wife stepped forward, eyes glistening. "Baby, I'm so sorry. We didn't want you to feel it." Ava pulled her sleeves down over her hands and stared at the floor. "I'm not stupid," she said. "Just tell me." I reached for her hand. "Your mom and I, things haven't been good between us for a while. And recently, I found out she's been seeing someone else." I felt her fingers go stiff under mine, then pull away. My wife stepped in, tears rolling silently now. I made a mistake. A big one. And I'm sorry, sweetie. I never meant to hurt you. Ava didn't say anything at first. She just stood up slowly, her face completely unreadable, and walked upstairs without another word. The door to her room closed, not slammed, but that quiet close hurt even worse somehow. Like she didn't even have the energy to be angry. We sat there in silence for a long time after that. My wife sobbed quietly at the kitchen table, but I didn't comfort her. I couldn't. Not this time. Later that afternoon, I knocked on Ava's door. No answer. I opened it gently and found her sitting on her bed, knees hugged to her chest, her eyes red and swollen. She didn't look at me. Can I come in? I asked. She shrugged. I sat at the edge of her bed. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry you're going through this. She didn't respond, just wiped her nose with her sleeve and whispered, "Is it my fault?" That broke me. I turned to her, took her hands, looked her straight in the eyes. No, this is not your fault. Not even a little bit. You didn't do anything wrong. Her lip trembled. Then why? Why would she do this? I didn't have a perfect answer. I wish I did. I wish I could have told her something that would make it all make sense. But the truth is, sometimes people break promises they once meant with their whole heart. Sometimes they drift. Sometimes they lose themselves and hurt the ones who love them most. So I just told her the only thing I knew for sure. She still loves you. And so do I. That hasn't changed. It never will. She cried then, deep, painful sobs that she tried to muffle against my chest. And I held her like I used to when she was small, when the world was simple and monsters only lived in closets. Except this monster lived right here in our house. We didn't talk much more that night. She stayed in her room with the door cracked open, music playing low, and I sat downstairs in the dark, wondering how much damage had been done and whether any of it could still be repaired. My wife and I barely spoke. We passed each other in the hallway like ghosts, both of us knowing the house we'd built was falling apart, board by board. She asked if we could talk again later in the week. I nodded. But I knew already that the only conversation left was how we were going to split a life that was no longer ours to share. Because once your daughter cries herself to sleep over something you didn't do, something you tried to protect her from, you don't come back from that the same. You come back changed. Or maybe you don't come back at all. There's nothing quite like sitting across from someone you once vowed forever to and realizing that now all you're doing is dividing a life you spent years building together. No rings, no tears, no begging, just calendars, bank statements, and the cold arithmetic of a love that didn't last. The week after Ava found out felt like we were all walking through a house made of glass, each of us too scared to make the next move, terrified the whole thing might shatter under our feet. My wife and I barely spoke. And when we did, it was surface level, like two coworkers forced to carpool to a job they hate. Ava stayed quiet, too. She went to school. She did her homework. She ate her dinner without complaint. But that spark she used to carry like a torch, it was gone. And I don't blame her. She was trying to make sense of something even adults can't explain. The people she loved most had broken something she thought was unbreakable. I started sleeping in the guest room. It wasn't even a decision we made, it just happened. I brought a pillow in there one night, claiming I had a headache and didn't want to keep her up. But we both knew better. She didn't ask me to come back the next night. And I didn't. That first call to a lawyer was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Not because I didn't believe in the decision, but because it made everything real. The words legal separation and custody agreement didn't sound like they belonged to us. But now they did. And the more I talked through the logistics, the more I realized just how many threads had to be cut to untangle what we built. We had one joint bank account, a mortgage, 2 cars, life insurance policies, investment accounts, and a summer vacation fund we'd been slowly growing for over a year. Every one of those things had once meant something hopeful. Now they were just numbers on a spreadsheet waiting to be sliced down the middle. The lawyer was calm, professional, asked me questions like he'd asked them 100 times before. But to me, every answer felt like a betrayal of the life I used to believe in. I didn't even tell my wife right away that I'd gone. I needed to process it first. Needed to breathe. When I finally told her 2 days later, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just nodded like she'd expected it. "I'll get someone too," she said softly. And that was that. Later that night, I found Ava sitting on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, just staring up at the sky like she was waiting for something to fall out of it. I sat beside her without saying anything, and we just listened to the night sounds, crickets whine through the trees, distant barking. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "So, where am I going to live?" That hit harder than anything I'd heard in weeks. I took a deep breath. We're still figuring that out, I said. But no matter what happens, you'll have a room in both places. And we'll both be there for you. Always. She nodded slowly, but I could see it written all over her face. She didn't want 2 rooms. She wanted one home. One family. Will I have to switch schools? She asked. No, I said quickly. You'll stay with your friends. Nothing's going to change that. That seemed to ease her a little. But she still didn't smile. I hate him, she said then, out of nowhere. The guy Mom's with. I wanted to tell her not to say that. That it wasn't healthy to carry hate. But I didn't. Because truth be told, I hated him too. Not just for what he did, but for what he took from her. From us. I know, I said quietly. I do too. And that was the first time we'd really connected since it all came out. 2 people hurting together in the dark, trying to make sense of something that never should have happened in the first place. The next morning, my wife and I finally had the big talk. We sat down with notebooks, each of us with a list. She wanted the SUV. I wanted the house at least until Ava graduated high school. She offered every other weekend. I asked for shared custody, alternating weeks. It wasn't a fight, but it wasn't gentle either. There were tears and silence and long pauses where neither of us wanted to admit what the other already knew. This marriage had been over long before the affair ever started. We just hadn't had the courage to say it out loud. I never stopped loving you, she said at one point, wiping her eyes, but I stopped seeing you. That hit harder than I expected. Because I realized I'd stopped seeing her too. Maybe that's how most marriages end. Not with some explosive fight or betrayal, but with 2 people drifting so far apart they forget how to find their way back. And someone else, someone outside, comes along and lights a spark that shouldn't have been needed in the first place. Now, we were just 2 people trying to untangle the mess of what we once promised would last forever. And Ava, she was the one paying the price. The thing about telling people your marriage is ending, especially one that looked so perfect from the outside, is that you start to see just how many folks were only ever invested in the picture, not the people inside the frame. We told our families that Sunday. We decided to do it separately. It just made more sense that way, less awkward, less confusing for everyone involved. I took Ava and went to my parents' house. My wife went to her sister's. I don't know exactly how her conversation went, and I haven't asked. But I know how mine did, and I won't ever forget it. My mom sat there with her coffee, holding it with both hands like she was bracing for bad news. My dad paced by the window, arms crossed, that worried look on his face that always made me feel 10 years old again. Ava was in the backyard, kicking around a soccer ball like she didn't want to hear the conversation she could already sense was coming. I told them straight. No drama. No theatrics. We're getting divorced. My mom let out this soft gasp and blinked like she hadn't heard me right. My dad froze. Then slowly turned toward me. She cheated? He asked. His voice was low, almost calm, like he was trying not to jump to conclusions but already halfway there. I nodded. Yeah. For a while. Silence fell so hard it rang in my ears. My mom started crying. She said something about always loving her like a daughter, how she couldn't understand how we went from Sunday dinners to this. My dad sat down across from me, staring me dead in the eye like he needed to study my pain up close. Are you okay? He asked. It was the simplest question, but I didn't know how to answer it. Was I? What even counts as okay when your home's splitting in half and your kid looks at you like she doesn't know which version of you is real anymore? I'm figuring it out, I said finally. They offered support, of course. My mom offered to move in temporarily to help with Ava. My dad said I could borrow his truck whenever I needed. That's what they do, they show up even when they don't know what to say. But I could tell they were angry, and not just for me. They were angry that someone had damaged something they thought was sacred. And I get that. What surprised me more was how friends reacted. Some were kind. Supportive. Whatever you need, man, I'm here. That kind of stuff. But others? They didn't hide their judgments so well. A couple guys I knew from work, mutual friends of ours, started sending those vague messages like, "You sure there's no way to fix this?" Or, "Think of Ava, maybe you guys just need space?" I wanted to yell. You think I haven't thought about Ava every second of every day since this began? You think I walked away because it was easy? But I didn't. I just stopped responding. Because when someone reduces your pain to something that can be glued back together with a few date nights and a couple counseling sessions, they're not seeing you. They're seeing their own fear of things falling apart. The worst reaction came from someone I never expected, her mother. She called me. Not my wife. Me. I saw her name flash on my phone and hesitated, but I answered anyway out of habit or politeness or maybe just morbid curiosity. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't even say hi. She just launched into it. I heard what's going on. I don't know all the details, but I hope you're not poisoning Ava's view of her mother. That would be very unfair. I sat there, stunned, gripping the edge of the kitchen counter. I'm not telling Ava anything that isn't true, I said calmly. She knows what happened. And she has a right to know. She's a child, her mother snapped. Children don't need to be dragged into adult mistakes. You're supposed to protect her. That was the moment I realized she wasn't defending her daughter because she thought she was right. She was defending her because she couldn't bear to see the image of their perfect family tarnished. I am protecting her, I said. From growing up in a house where love is fake and loyalty doesn't mean anything. She hung up without another word. And you know what? I didn't care. Because by then I'd stopped worrying about what everyone else thought. My focus had narrowed down to two people, me and Ava. Everyone else's opinions were background noise. That night, Ava and I had dinner alone. Just the two of us. She asked if we could eat in the living room, something her mom never allowed. I said yes. We sat on the couch with spaghetti on our laps, watching an old movie she used to love when she was younger. Halfway through, she leaned her head on my shoulder. "You're doing okay, Dad," she whispered. And I don't think she knew what those words did to me. They stitched something back together in my chest that had been breaking for weeks. Not because I needed validation, but because it meant she still saw me as her safe place. Her anchor. Her father. And that, no matter what her mom had done, was never going to change. You never really prepare for the day when you wake up and realize that everything you thought was permanent, your marriage, your home, your future, is just gone. But what I learned, slowly and painfully, is that even after the walls come down and the dust settles, there's still something left standing. You. It's been almost 6 months since that night on the couch with Ava when she leaned on me like I was still solid, still safe. Since then, everything's changed, but not all of it's been bad. The divorce went through quicker than I expected. No screaming matches in court, no nasty custody battle. We stuck to the plan we laid out: split weeks, joint decisions, Ava at the center of everything. That was the one thing we both agreed on without hesitation. Whatever we broke, we weren't going to break her. I kept the house. Not because I wanted to, honestly, I didn't. Every corner of it was soaked in memories I couldn't scrub out, no matter how many walls I repainted or pieces of furniture I replaced. But I kept it for Ava. She needed something familiar. Some part of her life that didn't change. My wife, or I guess I should say ex-wife now, moved into a townhouse about 15 minutes away. It's modern, sterile, too clean for comfort. Ava doesn't talk about it much. She goes there with a backpack, stays her few days, then comes home and drops it in the corner like it's just another chore to check off. I don't ask her to compare. I don't want to hear it. I just try to make our time matter. Sometimes I catch her staring at me when she thinks I'm not looking. Not sad. Just watching. Like she's still trying to figure out if I'm really okay. And truth is, I'm not always. Some days still hit hard. Some nights, I still roll over and instinctively reach for a body that isn't there. But more and more, I find peace in the quiet. In the absence of pretending. I started going to therapy. Something I should have done years ago. Not just because of the divorce, but because I'd lost myself long before it. I didn't even realize how much I'd given up trying to hold that marriage together until I finally let go. And it felt like breathing for the first time after holding it in too long. The sessions helped me see the truth, not just about her, but about me. About how I ignored the signs. About how I tied my entire identity to being a provider, a husband, a father, and forgot to be me somewhere along the way. And now, I'm finding that man again. I started running in the mornings. It's nothing impressive, just a few miles around the neighborhood before the sun gets too high. But it clears my head. Makes me feel alive again. I signed up for a half marathon in the fall. Ava said she wants to make a sign and come cheer me on. I told her that's the only reason I'm doing it. Work's steady. Not thrilling, not terrible. But I finally found the balance I never had before. I don't stay late to avoid going home. I don't bring work to the dinner table. When I'm with Ava, I'm with her. Fully. We've started new little traditions: Friday night takeout and movie marathons, weekend pancakes, Sunday walks in the park. We're building something new, just the two of us. And somehow it feels more honest than anything we had before. As for my ex, we're civil. Cordial. She still sees the guy, though she doesn't bring him around Ava. That's part of the agreement, and so far, she's stuck to it. She texted me once, not long ago, out of the blue. Just said, "I'm glad you're doing okay." I didn't reply. Not out of spite. I just didn't know what to say. Because the truth is, I'm not angry anymore. I was for a long time. But now, I just feel done. Like I finally stepped off a ride I should have gotten off years ago. Last week, Ava and I sat on the porch watching a thunderstorm roll in, the kind that darkens the sky out of nowhere and rattles the windows like the world's about to end. She leaned her head on my shoulder again, just like she did that night. "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" she asked. I smiled. "I don't know. Maybe, if the right person comes along. But I'm not in a rush." She nodded like that made sense. "I just want you to be happy." That hit me harder than anything she's said in months. And I realized something right then, and there's something I think I'd forgotten in all the wreckage. I am happy. Not every moment. Not every day. But in the ways that matter, in the quiet, honest, steady kind of way. The kind of happy that doesn't depend on someone else choosing me. The kind that comes from knowing who I am and who I refuse to be again. I may not have the life I planned, but I've got my daughter. I've got my peace. And for the first time in a long time. That's enough.